I can go all day, buddy.
How many do you have in you, Steve?
I can go all day, buddy. And you know, you might want to
Why do you guys have this strapping anyway?
go to a wider stance there for a little better workout.
This is unbelievable. How are you doing this?
It's not a problem, buddy.
All right, I quit.
Yeah, me too.
You guys are going?
Ooh.
Somebody should clap right as I hit him.
Does that cave in?
Dr. Greg's camera.
Gotcha.
Take
Ready.
one.
Hey, Steve Basic Architect. I got two West Coast buddies out here on the East Coast. Tim from Awesome Framers, Brian, Pioneer Builders. They're basically one and the same, but they like to be different.
We're brothers, but different.
We're out here at one of our Build Show build projects. You can see we're using the Zip R9 out here. Now you guys out in the West, the requirement of using exterior insulating sheathing is becoming
Brand new.
Yeah,
Like,
2021, it was just like enacted, and it's the prescriptive path, R5 on the outside.
Like settled as of like a couple weeks ago,
Yeah,
right?
just happened.
and I'm sure everybody's now trying to figure out, okay, how
They're
do we
panicking.
use this? How do we
They're
do it?
completely panicking.
What do we do? Even though for years people have been saying, this is coming, and it's
here.
kind of like, it's here.
Yep.
And now there's no food on the shelves
Yeah.
of the grocery store, right?
Exactly,
Pretty
that's
much
exactly
the-
right.
The story. But so I have an interesting story. You can see back here, we don't have any of the windows cut in yet.
I just
right?
figured the architect left them out.
Well, it does make for thermally.
It's a very
Yeah,
efficient
super
very-
efficient.
envelope.
Exactly. But years ago, 2010 exactly, 14 years ago, I did my first passive house, but it was also my first use of Zip. And I didn't know a whole lot about it. Hubert, I don't think really knew a whole lot about it. And we had a similar condition where the window company was absolutely horrible, delivered the windows way later than we needed. But I talked the builder into, can we just zip the whole house? And then we did an air tightness test. So we basically had slab, zip, and then we had the drywall in them, in our air barrier on the lid. So it was a really good test
Yeah.
of zip. And we were at 0.32 ACH 50 on it. So half of passive house. And so those people that, question, I don't know if it's an air barrier, I don't know if that tape is going to work. You have all those nail holes. I mean,
It
we
worked.
have houses that work exceptionally well.
That was
So
2010.
That was 2010. Was my first time.
Our
we
first
used
time with Zip was 2009.
It. Ooh.
Yep. What house, do you remember?
Yeah, Mountain View. It was like market had crashed, it was a spec, and we had done the foundation footings like a year before. Extend the permit, do the walls, and then finally it was just we were out of work and we're like, we're this far, we got to build the house. Mike Slogat said, hey, you guys need to try Zip. So we got that like first time rebate, a couple dollars a
Yep.
panel. Yep.
Yep.
So initially you spec'd it as your WRB, and then it was almost a happy accident on the air tightness side, or was that part of
Yeah,
your
well,
design?
it was our primary air barrier, and we knew we were going to use it because they made that claim, but there was no real proof
Right.
that it worked. So we actually built the whole house. I mean, it had almost, I think it was like 6,800 square feet of surface area, which the Zip probably comprised 70% of that, and it performed exceptionally well.
Slab on grade,
It
vented
was a slab on
attic.
grade, vented attic. Yep.
So your drywall, was that your air
The
barrier
drywall
on the
was the air
ceiling?
barrier across the top.
Yep.
So here we made some slight changes that we can go in and we could talk about, but there's a whole
Cool.
host of details here that I think, a lot of people, we use it regularly, we post about it. People always, well, what about this? What about that? So why don't we go over there and we'll handle a whole bunch of these. Well, what
Awesome.
about this? What about that? All right, so we're over in the corner here. One of the questions that comes up, we're using Zip R9 panel here. I got my very lovely assistant working here. But notice one of the questions, I should say, about Zip R sheathing is, while we have a really good weather resistant barrier here, we have a very vulnerable edge in the poly iso. And the question there is, well, how do we deal with that, right? And this is, again, a question you guys out there, guys are going to start using this stuff. These are questions that they come up with, right?
Yeah, because normally you would have your mud sill that comes in here. So from the bottom side, this whole thing would be exposed.
Right.
What do you do about that?
Right. And I don't know about you guys, but in New England here, we do double sills on all of our foundations. Yeah,
we're single. Yeah.
I mean, some guys will use single that are trying to do whatever, but it's kind of like that guy's the hack if you use a single.
Well, wait a second.
Welcome to the West Coast.
East Coast versus West Coast, I see.
So, yeah, well, that's just what we believe here, but
That we're hacks.
No. But I think, you know, the beauty of having the double sill now is that we could take the lower one, use it as a treated sill, and we could simply extend it out to whatever depth our sheathing is.
Which is about a little under 2.
It's a little under 2. These are 1 inch and 15/16. It'd be 1 inch and 7/16 for the R6 panel and 2 and 7/16 for the R12 panel. But having that double sill allows us to extend out, provide protection under there, but also gives us a sill to nail to. So we don't really give up any of our shear nailing or have to do anything crazy there, because it's basically, this is the additive
Yeah, because for
piece.
load path, the structural panel has to be attached to the mud sill. Mud sill is attached to the concrete.
Yes.
So you guys, 2x8, you guys are snapping lines 5.5, letting it hang out?
And just letting it hang out that 1 inch and 15. And then we hold the 2x6 face is basically flush with the concrete.
And it's all smooth on the inside.
And it's all
Yeah.
smooth on the inside. It's, yeah, I mean, it's within a 16th or
Yeah.
so there. But now you can see we have a nice, you know, hard bottom here where rodents and such can't go up, and we carry that detail vertically when we do a step foundation. And then obviously this will get all covered, nailed off, and covered with the Fenstrom tape.
So this is the Sega Fenstrom tape, and you can see right now it hasn't been installed on this side yet.
No, that's perfect though, because we can see it in profile.
You can see it, and you don't have to prime it. So we're primarily a spec builder. Anytime we can save some time, it equates to a labor money savings, honestly.
Right. And that, you know, guys here favor it. You know, I've heard different stories. You can see we have a much wider one and a narrower one. And, you know, this is one of those things people say, well, what should I do? And it's like, it depends on who you are. Because I know some builders that would say, hey, I just want to go around once. And then I've heard builders say, man, that is a pain in the neck folding it. So some guys will just fold this up and come over to the edge, and then they'll just come over the top of that with a second piece and make it real easy.
So I got a question for us, Timmy. We're seismic design category D2. Sometimes you have to deal with wind.
Yes, we do here. We're within a high wind
You're in
zone.
that
We're
zone.
within like 6 miles of the ocean,
you've
or
got the lateral
7 miles.
forces.
Yes.
For us, if we did the double sill, in order for our shear to connect all the way through for lateral restraint, wouldn't we have to have our foundation bolts hit the top?
I think,
Second one, if that makes sense.
I think our engineer, because we're using 3x3 bearing plates, I think what he would do, we're retrofitting Titans now. If we cast in place, because we've done that with taller mud sill, is we order bolts that are longer. It's marginally more expensive, or it's really nothing. Now we're pinning this all down. If we added the second one, then we would just drill longer Titans. 3x3 bearing plate, we just drive them. So there's only like the extra labor of another 2 inches of drilling for us. And then the bolts were bolted, wood structural panel.
All the way through.
Yeah.
Because in this case, your bolt is going to your 2x8, and then they take the second bottom plate.
But think of it this
and
way,
drill
Brian. It's
that
no
out.
different than
I
your
know, I
walls
was
that
thinking
land on
that.
a floor. So we could just nail that plate down, and he's going to give us a nailing schedule like every other shear wall
Exactly.
that nails into the floor.
Just like at the second floor,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. It's not concrete all the way through.
Yeah, I know Terry, when I've spec'd that like balloon frame slab on grade, I'm like, can I just bolt the bottom plate of the wall? And he's like, it's stronger. Okay, then so Olympic are both that way. We just drilled them after.
And for those of you that are new to using Zip R sheathing, I hear it all the time, and I'm sure you do. Well, you don't have any shear value there. No, we do. Even a Zip R9 panel has documented shear values. Now, they're slightly decreased from just using the standard 7/16, but they are there. This whole house has been fully engineered by our structural engineer, and he provides us the details with the lesser values.
So this R9 and smaller is great because we don't have to use any special nail guns. This is a 3.5-inch nail that attaches?
Yes.
Yeah, and we're just minimum 3-inch. Our engineer just has us put more nails.
Yeah, and they have a spec. I mean, it's the .131
Yep.
nail, 3.5 inches. So we have that whole spec. We have a little shear schedule that, he puts out for us to nail that off.
I've got a question that will stump you.
Go ahead.
If they did this right, how come I'm not seeing any foam on this end?
If they did that right, because they did do it right, they actually dadoed
Ah,
the 1.5 inch out of that.
because we want foam
And
to
then bring it-
overlap foam.
We want foam to touch foam.
Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, we've got like a straight path in from the corner.
Exactly, and I've only seen it one time. We had a framer on a project. His favorite detail is to miter the corners.
Oh,
So his guys just run a bunch of panels
Yeah.
through on a 45, and it meets nice and neat. He's easy to tape.
I think Joel
it's
McIntosh
nice
showed
and
that
clean.
once, and I was like, you put a ripping guide on a saw. We're talking how many corners on the house?
Yeah,
It's maybe 10 minutes worth
and you
of
put
work.
one guy there, and you just say, "Hey, rip these 10 panels."
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys tell me, because one of the fascinating things about you guys is that your planning and execution are one step away from each other. As opposed to me, it's like me, structural engineer, general contractor, framing subcontractor. It's like by the time it gets from us to them, the story's a little, yeah. When it comes down to it, it's more about what is it that works for you. Like, there is no right way to do this lap joint, whether
There's
it's
a wrong
mitered
way,
or lap.
and there's a bunch of right ways.
Yes, and there's a bunch of right ways. And people, that I find on social media, they always are kind of trying to document the way to do it. Yeah. And there's so many ways to do.
I posted yesterday using a level to locate an overframe ridge, and a guy's like, just do it this way. And I was like, that's why I said in the caption, this is one right way.
Yeah.
We're trying to just give people as much information. When I was taking guitar lessons as a teenager, my teacher said, learn from all the masters, and then you develop your own bag of tricks. But you want the biggest bag of tricks possible. Right. Otherwise, you're just a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, you have different applications, different situations. You could have a tool break, and then all of a sudden you have to use something else to achieve something, but you need to finish the job for the day or get it dried in. Dad, being a farmer from North Dakota, they didn't have...
Jury rig.
They had to
Baling
just
wire.
make it up.
Yeah.
They were mending fences all the time.
Baling wire and duct tape, that's what Matt used to say.
One of the greatest things I've ever done, I worked on a farm through high school, and it was probably the most exciting job because every day was something different, right? It's like, okay, the baler broke, we got to fix that. Yep. The conveyor broke, we got to fix that. Hey, we got to do some kind of, jerry rig here to keep this running. So it was always...
And you know what's important and what isn't. Their fences, nobody's seeing their fence when they're driving by on the dirt road. So it's as good as it needs to be to accomplish that task. Yeah. Some things have to be precise because they're going to be visible or your margins of error are razor thin. Other things, this is going to get taped. Nobody's ever going to see that.
Well, so as far as like the two ways to tape corners with our sheathing is if you do it this way, we can get away with 4-inch seam tape.
Right.
If we do it like I like to, where I leave the foam exposed on one end, then I have to do 2 layers of tape or 1 layer of 6-inch.
Right.
So everything's a trade-off. Which is easier in that instance on a ladder? Maybe I just want to do one piece of piece of tape.
Yeah. One question for you, Steve, and maybe you addressed it and I missed it. Obviously, this is air impermeable. So is this. Explain the reason for the Sega at the bottom end.
So
is
the
it
Sega,
for weather resistant?
Yeah, the Sega Ventrum it's a really good air barrier tape, right? And if you don't believe me, I'm not going to show you, but you can put your lips up to it and try and blow on it and blow through it. So you won't be able to.
Only Jake Bruton could successfully demonstrate that.
I'm not going there. The beauty of that is, I believe it's a dual release on the back. So dual release means I can strip off the top half, put it
release
on,
paper,
and then strip off the bottom half. And the other part is that is a permeable tape. So if moisture does migrate
water
down,
permeable, water vapor.
Yeah, or water vapor, it has the ability to dry out through that system. And if you're going to get moisture in this wall, it's going to happen right here. It's not going to happen up there. It's going to migrate, fall to gravity, and the moisture content's going to be higher down here.
Yep. Yep, cool.
So,
Anything else on this corner?
no, but we have a whole bunch of other details. Why don't we, we'll just move
That's
right
like
over
the
here.
perfect segue. Anything else on this corner? No, but we're going clockwise.
You're done. Quiet. That's it for now. But we do get the question all the time of like, do you trust the tape? How long do you think that tape is going to last? And my answer is always that it's a system, right? It's not only about the tape. It's not only about the board. It's how the board and the tape actually respond to
Because if
each
the
other.
tape doesn't work well, then the whole system doesn't work well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you guys might have heard this story. I'm loaded with stories. I was actually locked on a fishing boat for about 6 hours
Haven't heard this one.
with the actual engineer that's responsible for the zip tape. So he is the guy
The chemical guy.
that designed this at the chemical company. And we talked long. He has like 2 or 3 PhDs. The guy's one of the smartest people I've ever met. 6 hours of talking about pressure sensitive adhesive. It was a full day, if you could hold that. So one of the things that he told me was that whether you're wrapping a house or wrapping a present, pressure sensitive adhesive relies on pressure, right? So if I just take the
Do you
tape.
want me to clean it first?
Ooh, good point. Yes, because you got the fancy tool. And you know what's interesting? In my drawings, go ahead. In my drawings, I actually call for joints to be wiped clean because I know you guys are nice and diligent. These guys are certainly nice and diligent about it. But I've also seen the builders that say, oh, this tape doesn't work. And then you look at the board and it has mud and muck all over it. And it's like, yeah, probably nothing's going to stick to that. But so, thank you, Brian. Nice and clean. If we put the tape up there and if I just take it down and I wipe it once with my hand,
I mean, I have above
throw the
average.
tape. There you go.
That's a lot of pressure what I'm doing.
Yeah. So a lot of guys think, hey, we're done there. And it's like, then somebody comes by and goes, oh, well, this tape, like, it really doesn't work all that well. Like, yeah, it sticks. But it's because they really haven't put the system or installed it to the way the system was designed. One of the interesting things about the covering of the zip board is it's micro-contoured intentionally.
It's not smooth, but it's textured.
Exactly. So that if you took a 1 square foot piece, you would have in excess of 1 square feet of surface area.
If you
Because
stretched it out.
If you stretched it out to be perfectly.
Isn't that the same thing about our lungs? If they stretch them out, they're like miles long, but because
And the same thing about bricks. I've heard that if you take the surface area of a brick, it's like 10 or 20 times the size of the face of the brick because of all the nooks and crannies that are in there. But, you know, so you have the micro contour, you have the tape, but then you also have the tool, right? And so Zip kind of took all of the guesswork out of it for us, right? So they create a roller, they put little Z's on there, which is great from a marketing standpoint, but it allows you to roll the tape. And they actually put it on there as a reminder, roll the tape. And so you really need to engage that wetting process. You guys are going to appreciate this. Big red.
it's a lot smaller in real life.
There you go. If I have this micro contour, right, of the surface
So
area.
that's a profile view.
Profile view, right? And then I put the tape. Well, if I just put the tape over here, there's a whole lot of areas that the tape doesn't touch. And the only way that I can get that is to actually roll the tape and have it fill all of those nooks and crannies.
So we want the tape to be textured after the fact, like the panel's textured.
Exactly, and you should be able to see that through, and if you look at an angle, you can see it where you rolled it. But again, that's only half of the process because what happens next is called the wetting process. And it's W-E-T-T-I-N-G. And so the wetting process is basically the adhesive filling in all of those nooks and crannies and basically biting on the surface, almost like a very micro version of Velcro.
Okay.
right? So it's grabbing in there and it's biting on it, and then that's what's going to give us that success story. So we have to go through all of that process, and we have a piece there that's been up for a while. So if we took this
Anyway, nope, you're good.
and we just slice this and then peel this.
And how long's that take then?
I think this one's been on there for, at least a week or so. But if you pull it, you can actually see the adhesive pulling out of that micro contour there. And so we know that it's going through the wetting process, and you can see the micro contours of the board being reflected on the tape there
I wonder.
as you pull it off.
Well, I mean, look at how much it's stretching the tape where my fingers are at.
Exactly. So it's really doing its job. And so people saying, well, I don't really know. Now, if I revert back to that project that we did in 2010, I actually took two pieces of this, taped it together, threw it out on my wood pile. So it's been out there for 14 years. The tape looks exactly like this. I mean, the board has been deteriorated because it's been sitting out there, freeze-thaw cycles, rain, UV, all of that. Not much would succeed out there just being left into the weather. But that tape joint is damn near as perfect as the day that we installed it. This never used to be there on the original rolls of tape, right? But as a reminder, they're trying to make it as foolproof as possible and providing that reminder of roll the tape. And it's all over their website. And again, the engineer that designed the tape, he said the most important thing is that you roll it and install it, and it gets installed on a clean surface.
And it's intuitive. You commented on a present before. If you're shipping something back to a company and you just take Scotch tape, a person naturally presses it on. If you just lay it on, you're going to be able to pull it right off.
Right.
So it's intuitive. Do the same thing. You're wrapping your house like a present. Make sure that you smooth it out. A couple of other things on here is you've got your ESRs.
Yes.
So you can check for that. A question for you. This is for seams, right? Panels. Do you specify the same type of tape when it comes to your window flashings?
We do in there, we use a mix of their stretch tape version as well as their straight flash version. So it depends. The stretch tape it costs more.
Yep.
Right? But it's doing more. And it's for very special occasions. So we have used that, and I know you guys have used it in different ways where you just do the corners and then do straight flash across the window opening as opposed to just running.
A little easier to work with.
It's a
on
little
big
easier
opening.
to work with. It's
It's
less
the most
expensive.
value engineered solution
Exactly.
while still getting your air sealing and your window or your water protection.
Yeah. And, for those out there that question the tape, and even if the beauty of running it vertical too is that if water did make it back here, it's going to find that joint and it's just going to fall to gravity and trace that line down.
I try to teach the guys on the roller to use this edge on the edge of the tape.
And just really hit that.
Yeah, so if you go up and down it this way, mix it, but then that last pass, split this right on the edge to make sure that edge gets done.
That really gets pushed in there. Yeah. I don't know about you guys. I feel very, very comfortable about using the tape on there. I feel very, very comfortable in knowing that all of our projects, including this one, always has a rain screen, right? So 90% of the water is getting treated out here somewhere. We're getting drops.
Yeah. I mean, we repaired the forklift seat. No door on the forklift. Repaired the seat with zip tape, so it's exposed to the sun. I mean, it's not coming off.
It's not coming off. So anyways, so there you have it. 3 guys, we use it all the time, and we're happy with it.
3 guys and a roller.
And a grinder brush.
And some tape.
And I got the knife.
And a knife.
Are we done?
Let's say that I'm super annoyed that some guy named Steve came out and cut my tape.
Well, I was given a class.
Now how do I repair it?
Well, we have to give another class.
Okay.
All right. So there's actually documentation on how to repair the joint. Do you know what the dimension is?
Minimum 3 inches.
3 inches
Overlap.
beyond the cut. So let me get out my good friend here. If that's our cut and we say we're going to go from there to there.
That's not 3 inches.
No, but that's where we can measure from. So we have 3 inches there, 3 inches
The
there,
rolls are 3 3/4, so we've got
3
safety
3/4. So I got a little bit of
Yeah.
safety factor built in there. And then
Larry Hahn always said skip the tape measure when you can.
skip the tape measure when you can. We'll go straight across there. We'll go straight across there.
20 minutes later when I pull the tape.
We'll peel that off.
Off camera. Or the roller, I mean.
I'm gonna need it.
I was going to throw it back.
He's gonna hit me in the head.
Be your R2D2.
So now we have a nice clean joint. We will go to our respective 3-inch mark. Come down.
What do you think of my technique?
I don't think I've seen better.
Yeah, I can do it both ways.
That is, but can you look over here and roll? There you go. Well, there you have it. When you have a problem, you now have a fix.
Hey, well, I have a question. You got ahead of yourself, Steve.
Okay.
You were Mr. Cocky to the camera.
Yeah, it was.
I now have a reverse lap, and everybody knows we're not supposed to do that. You roof from the bottom up.
Right? You know, the 3-inch provides us the safety factor in that if water did get in there, it's not going to penetrate the full 3 inches. So the actual patch has a safety factor built in.
And then we added a safety factor with 3/4 more,
And we added the 3/4 more.
because that's what we do.
There we go.
Yeah, because I think that when we have horizontal joints, people will criticize this is a reverse lap.
Right.
Well, isn't that joint a reverse lap too? And it's like, no, that's all built into the adhesive and the.
Exactly. And if you are concerned about a patch on the horizontal, just put another piece of tape over it.
Yeah, because we can't sequence everything the way we want sometimes. So we've taped the whole house. Now we're back siding. We put metal on the trim, the water table. Everybody's like, oh, you have a reverse lap. Well, that all we need to do is patch that same thing.
Yeah.
Just put another 3-inch minimum.
Yeah. I mean, I have total faith in that. I'm not worried about that.
When the big one happens, this will be the part that's left.
That's the one piece that,
Yeah.
That's what I say. In 1,000 years from now, everything around us, but we'll just have this wall with that piece of tape.
And I'm going to be here filming it.
And you're going to be here filming
Yeah.
it. I'm going to come back. I don't know what form, but I'll be back.
Hopefully a more attractive one.
Ooh, that was hurtful.
I'm going to be a taller form. I really hope.
Be,
Yeah.
be taller.
I just need to
Same size, just stretched out.
Yes. Yes.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Something usable there.
There's something usable. You know, guys, moving down the wall here, you know, one of the things I like to think about too is, and I think they did a really good job here, is being cognizant of lapping the tape in the proper order, right? There's a lot of guys that they'll either start from the top, they put the last sheet on and then they start taping, realizing that maybe we should have went to the bottom and went up so that we get the proper lapping. You know, you can see the Sega Fentrum, we talked about that. The zip flashing tape comes over the top. It doesn't go into that pocket, right? As it goes up, it tucks underneath that horizontal.
Step 1 at the mud sill. Step 2.
Just like a roofer.
Yeah. Step 3 is horizontal, so to speak.
Yes.
Step 4 is then all the verticals, and we just repeat.
And the verticals come over the top, and they did a beautiful job here that it's all properly lapped and rolled. I can see all the Z's, so we have our good quality control. But, you know, again, it's one of those things, I get asked all the time, hey, what's the best material for this, or what should we do there? And my answer is always the same, the one that's installed properly.
Yeah. If you think about the amount of quantity as it accumulates on a roof or a sidewall like this, because you said earlier that you've got wind here. Let's just say that you had a fraction of an inch of rain that'll hit the top. Over time, by the time you get to the bottom, it will have accumulated all of that in its flow. So that's going to be pretty much your most important, and it becomes less important as you go up. So you do want to pay attention to that detail. Now I'm looking here, and they have some nails that are fastened, but like this whole panel isn't. And I know that they put the windows in.
Did they miss the whole panel?
No, they didn't miss the whole panel. You remember, we have some windows here. So you can see they have the sill line snapped and the nails happen below the sill line. We just covered this so that the mechanicals can happen.
They can keep all the
in
electrical
the weather.
dry.
They can throw some temporary heat in there. We have Zip-R. You know, one of the other benefits of Zip-R9 is you can run some temp heat in there and you are insulated.
Yeah. So you're
So
dried
you'd-
in, yeah.
And you'd have to think about running lighting inside. If you're a builder, make sure that you've got that figured out.
And make sure you have it. You know, one of the things that I like to touch on too is, and you guys, I don't think have the problem like, you come out here and there's a framer and there's 9 or 10 guys. The guy that they give the tape, well, he's not the guy that did the layout, right? They picked the guy that just started last week and say, hey, you know, Johnny, come on over here. Here's the tape and go and do this. And that's fine. I can understand the reason why Johnny was the choice. But I think as the guy in charge, it's your responsibility to make sure Johnny has the proper tools, but also has the proper knowledge of what needs to be done.
Not only the what, but the why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But skill level wise, it could still be the person that
It can still be Johnny,
Start getting that
but
muscle
Johnny
memory.
just needs to learn. And you need to take that 5 minutes, maybe come and do 1 or 2 with him and say, okay, Johnny, make the rest of the house look like that.
Yeah.
Special Steve on an inside corner, like we talked about the outside corners, but with Zip-R.
I think, you know, when it comes to corners, straight flash here, that's pretty easy. The thing about corners, I mean, outside corners are certainly easier than inside, and this one I would consider done very, very well, right? I always tell the guys, you know, either work it from the inside joint out in both directions, or if you're gonna work it in, make sure you get this side fully installed before you put that second
3-foot
side.
sections, and I put it in, and I kind of use my square or like something
Yeah.
like I have a little quick flash tool right in the side, and then I do one side and then the other.
And
Yeah,
how
they did a
about
nice job.
with the panel on the outside like there, some of the guys might carve out part of it or miter it or do that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Are you just going panel to panel and not doing it?
Yeah, we would just wrap around. If that is exposed, we would literally just go around it and cover it with either 2 pieces or just a wider
But same
piece
thing
of
as the
straight
outside,
flash.
the inside needs to be foam covering foam.
Yes.
So run one side in, butt the other side, and make sure there's enough backing so it's
Yeah.
all nailed.
And these guys they did a beautiful job. There's no fish mouth, there's no excess in there. So fish mouth is when this is off, it's almost like a fillet there instead of being tucked into the 90. It has
Surface
a
area
little
all tight.
rounded area because you didn't offer enough slack to tuck it.
Takes a little bit of practice,
It
but
does take a little bit of practice. But again, this is that whole Johnny conversation that it's okay if Johnny does it, but Johnny has to have the right tools and the right information.
I have a question up above. What did they do with the taping up above? I see like there's a mixture of 2 Huber products.
So there we actually, you know, I would call it, there's the primary flashing and then there's the secondary or sacrificial flashing, right? So on the shed roof, a couple things of note, and I'll take credit for this because I'm the architect on the project. Notice that the roof doesn't come all the way out to the corner and provide a conflict of, hey, how do I fold this and how do I do it? I push the roof far enough away from the corner board so that it can be its own system and the corner and wall can be its own system.
Easier to detail, easier to side, easier to trim.
All of those things. And then you're just tucking this stuff up against there. So you can see there, they actually have taken the peel and stick membrane that's part of the zip system, and it's attached to the roof sheathing, and then it's folded up the wall about 18 inches is pretty typical for us around here. And then that gets taped off at that seam. So you have that terminating edge of the underlayment, and then we put the tape over the top of that as a real cheap insurance policy.
Yeah, I like that. So it folds up, top is taped, they roof it, they have the roof to wall metal. The roof to wall metal is now taped to the peel and stick.
To the peel and stick. So you basically, it's like double coverage of flashing there, and I would consider the last one is kind of the sacrificial layer. It's there to just kick the water out. The inside one is kind of the last resort, right?
So we've got a story for you. Probably the most frustrating failure we ever had was that interface of a sidewall with a roof coming into it And that joint where the sheathing hit the sheathing, the roof sheathing to the wall sheathing, was never taped. And eventually, and the metal flashing that went on top of that wasn't taped to the zip. If either one of those would have happened, and the amount of time we spent cutting out drywall, trying to figure out what was going on.
When it happens 3 stories up.
Yes.
Anything else?
Yeah, because it's like zip gets taped to zip. So the roof deck gets taped to the wall. Then every other trade comes in and does their thing, the siders, the roofers. But that way we don't have water running down, and that would have been a great place to put a few things to keep them dry.
And this, of course, this is going to get a rain screen system, so you get the reprieve of having that rain screen and keeping, you know, most of the bulk water off of challenging that system.
So the strapping is going to come over the top of all
The
of this.
strapping will come over all the top of that and basically bleed out the bottom onto the roof.
Nice job designing. You know, I don't know. I feel like you get a lot of credit for the design, like holding the overhangs back, but your design could be just perfect. But then if the installers, guys like me, don't follow through, it was kind of all for nothing, in a sense.
Execution is,
Yeah.
you know, again, that's
So really-
what material should I use? The one installed right.
The framer is just as important as the architect.
Everybody's, yeah, I think I've always said that, you know, from, the accountant has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Architect, framer.
The architect framer, there you go. But it is a team effort to build a house. You know, I've worked with good framers, I've worked with some challenging framers, and I've worked with some exceptional people too. And I'm always amazed at how different people see different things. And I'm sure it's the same with architects. There's architects that would just bring this all the way out to the edge and just say, hey, figure it out. And when you're up there doing origami with, you know, real sticky tape and it fails because the tape's folded 5 different ways, then the architect says, well, you know, I drew it. You should have been able to do that.
So you've been working with Zip for at least 14 years. How many times have you come out with a brand new builder, brand new frame crew, and walked through this, the installation?
I always ask them like how familiar they are with the system. So we have usually a pre-construction meeting to gauge like, hey, have you used Zip before? Yes, we have. Okay. Notice in the drawings, I call for the joints to be wiped clean, then taped. Do you do that? Yeah, we kind of do, but we'll pay attention and we'll make sure we do that.
Extra communication is key.
And a lot of times when we go out there, if I see something, I don't have a problem saying, yeah, those 8 lines of tape, we got to pull them off or redo them because it just isn't installed right.
Yeah.
And that's taking care of either the current owner or all of the future owners being willing to say that. It's not a matter of you pushing your weight around. It's for the safety of the occupants in the building.
No, and my job is, right, it's loyalty to the owner because they're paying me for a house that's going to be put in a position to succeed. I put those efforts onto the framer. And the framer puts it onto the cider and so on and so forth. It goes down the line. But we all have skin in the game.
Sweet. Thank you for the outside tour. I kind of want to go inside.
Yeah, there's a couple places. Actually, there's one more detail. Let's talk about thermal continuity, but we'll jump over that and we'll do that in another video.
Okay. Well, what are some of the things we're looking at from the architecture, the building science side?
Why don't we work our way in from the outside? So we had a steel moment frame. We had 2 of them here. And those are basically to pick up the slack for lateral loading, right? We're getting a lot of wind. We have a 54-foot long wall here that is basically unbraced.
It's a sail.
It's a sail. So we picked a spot pretty much about in the middle third, certainly, but somewhere right around in the middle, and we put the steel in there. But one of the issues is that steel beam connects to 2 steel columns. That one goes down to the foundation. This one goes down through the walkout to the slab below. But one of the beauties of using Zip-R sheathing is the fact that we have insulation everywhere except for doors and windows. So we have a situation over here where that steel column is, and you can see the flanges of the H section here. And the fact that we have the Zip-R 9 and we have a little bit of space back there, we'll be able to get some insulation on the back side of that, but also having that Zip R9 there allows us to put this steel moment frame inside without having the concerns of, are we going to get condensation on this piece of steel?
So ordinarily, if this was just regular structural sheathing, it would be directly up against the metal.
Right up there.
Metal is a good conductor of heat. So if there was moisture, now does it get cold here?
We're climate zone 5, so we
you're gonna
can get below 0 in the winter for sure out here. So, and we have high winds here, which the wind chill is probably going to make it feel a lot colder than it actually is. So, you know, just another reason for that Zip R9 or just using insulating sheathing that it helps in pretty much all conditions.
Because if the surface is warmer, all things being equal, the amount of moisture in the air, it's not going to turn to liquid.
It's not going to turn to liquid. And the fact that we, you know, one of the things I always bank on that you don't necessarily, it's somewhat of an intangible, is by using the Zip system, we have a pretty high rate of success for an air barrier. And so what that means is if I don't move a lot of air across this cavity, I don't move a lot of moisture, because the moisture movement is now regulated to just diffusion, not air transported moisture.
While we're here, did you spec this particular floor sheathing?
We did. We moved to X Factor. It's our first time in using that. So there's a whole number of reasons where I think it's a great choice. It's certainly not, Advantech is a great material, but, we knew that we were going to be framing this in the winter. We knew that we were going to have some lengthier times where we're out in the weather and you're going to get snow and ice and this and that where you might be shoveling it. So we went for the added protection of moving to the X Factor. So, it basically gives you a weather resistive barrier on the outside of your Advantech.
So it's regular Advantech facing. We're about to use it the first time next week.
Gotcha.
What was your guys' experience? What did they like?
I mean, they really liked it. It's not as slippery as regular Advantech, right? There is a little bit of a bite to it. It's nice and easy to clean. One of the other beauties that a lot of people
Are we going to get to see Big Red?
is, that, you can write on it. And it stays on there. So that if you were making marks for your electrician or cabinets or plumber and laying out stuff, it gives you a really nice, easy to see, kind of not wearable,
Easy to clean, grippier, yeah.
But, one of the things that I think is kind of goes unmentioned a lot is, we build houses for people that are spending a lot of money. And does this cost more than regular Advantech? It does, but it's undeniable when you walk into the space and then look across the floor, it looks like a very professionally installed system for the house.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, so like we were talking about, we're going to try this out. This to me seems more like a product kind of like roofing underlayment. A lot of people don't understand roofing underlayment is there during construction, and then if you ever lost your shingles. It's not really part of your barrier unless it has to be. So for this, even if it's not the same WRB, since we're doing an unvented crawl space and we're in Washington where it rains, I think we're going to tape the seams and try to keep water out of the crawl space during construction. So that's going to be part of our thinking on this. And then I'm going to check and just confirm. We always do solid oak for a lot of our main levels. And this is being a class 2 vapor retarder. We might be able to get away with not having underlayment. I don't know that yet, but
Question
I'm
on
going to look
that,
into
do
it.
we have to tape the seams to get that class of vapor retarder? Or is the tongue and groove, then this is it?
I think the tongue and groove meets that classification. I mean, it's semi-permeable as a class 2, so the little bleeding at the joints, I think, is just a small little additive.
And that's the other part of the equation that is so easy to forget about is the equipment side. We're probably going to have a dehumidifier in the crawl space. So the latent load is going to be so low that I'm not particularly worried about diffusion of water coming up through that anyways.
Yeah. And you know, this is obviously not a very large house. We're at about 2,000 square feet up above, but you know, I can't help but imagine, you know, you're a framer out there and you're framing a house for 3 or 4 months that's 8, 10, 12,000 square feet. You want to put down a product that, especially through the winter time in Utah or Montana or Massachusetts or Maine, you want to put down a product that's not going to look like crap.
So this is keeping the water from getting to the wood.
It's keeping the water, yeah. And it's a little rain jacket that we're putting on top of the Advance.
And not only like the wood here, but also your subfloor or your,
With the
your
joists.
floor
The
system.
joists, everything.
But you mentioned the winter, even in the summertime, you might be thinking more about UV,
Yep.
and that will just kind of shred the top of your,
Oh, in one day, like we left the block across 2x12 rafter, and you move the block, you see the outline.
Yeah, that UV it is incredible how damaging and how quickly it breaks down. Yeah. So, I mean, this is our first time using it. I know it's certainly not going to be our last. I think we found it favorable talking with the general contractor and the framers. They both really loved using it. So, like I said, it was our first, but certainly won't be our last.
Cool. Maybe show us from the inside, if you don't mind, Steve. You talked about covering everything up from the outside. This kind of shows what the framing looks like, where the window openings are going to go.
Yeah, where's the window over here, man?
So we have it all covered. You can see we have some temporary framing here. Now this is a really interesting window, actually, or door. It's something that we've never used before. We're 1 story up, so we're about 10 feet to grade on the outside of the floor here. This is a lift and slide door that's, I don't know, I think it's about 11 feet, and it has a 5-foot operable panel. Now, being a story up, you say, well, aren't people going to fall out? Well, it has actually a glass panel that's integral to the door, so it becomes a Juliet balcony as we slide the door open. So, being the living room here, you can open that up and you can go and hang out and look or get that breeze coming in.
Is this another?
This is a fixed panel that is just sized accordingly to the lift and slide door, so it's just one big large panel. So, and then a smaller version of the window around the corner there.
And as we come around, you've got a couple of windows
We have a
here.
couple more windows there and a couple more complementary above, so that floods the whole stairwell.
Yeah, and
with
I know
light from there.
even behind us we have windows, so you're going to get light coming all day long.
Pretty much this whole wall is primarily glass, hence the need for the 2 moment frames also. Right?
Cool.
So, yep, we're getting there. So I can't wait to see these go in.
Yeah.
And these are all triple glazed Euro style so that they're complementing the Zip R9 or the use of the Zip R9, right? You know, you do a R, what are we at, 32-ish R30 wall system where you have a 21 cavity and then the Zip R9 on the outside. You know, you don't want to put in an R3 window, right? You want to be somewhat complementary to the system. So moving that up to a, you know, 0.13, 0.15, where we're getting up to near, you know, R7 plus, it makes for a really good, tight, efficient.
And when you do your energy model, whether you do it or if you hire it to a third party, they're going to look at this room, figure out what your wall cavities are, all of that, but then they're also going to take into consideration each one of these units and figure out your heating and cooling load. And that's where the mechanical intersection comes in.
Yeah, and the air tightness, and we're doing that on a number of projects right now. So,
Well, anything else you?
Something I've noticed, Steve.
what's that, buddy?
What's the deal with all the HVAC ducting that's not connected to?
So because we have open web trusses, the beauty of open web trusses is that I can run ductwork and stuff through it. But if we frame it all up and close it off, the HVAC guy is now relegated to putting in little 2-foot sections and piecing it together. So the general contractor got with the HVAC guy, they sized a number of their runs They built them in the shop, they taped them off and capped them at the end and delivered them. And then the framers, just before they put the band on and sheathed it, they ran the ductwork in. So now the ductwork's just sitting there waiting for the HVAC guy to show up, and then he'll plug in and tap into that. But that's all one straight run now, not piecemeal.
Yeah.
That's great.
Good planning, good execution.
Good planning, good execution. So it all works out in the end very, very well. Everything. We might want to go upstairs. There's actually a detail. You know, we talked about the air barrier at the wall and the Zip R9 and what a great system that is. But at some point, the wall ends and we have to take it and connect that wall to that wall with a lid.
Okay, I wanted
And
to
we
ask
did
you about that upstairs.
Successfully upstairs. So why don't we take a walk up there and we'll check that out.
So looking at this, truss is all set before interior walls get framed.
Yes. So we have the exterior face of the Zip R is our air barrier. That goes up to the top plate. Somehow we need to transfer that over. But in doing that, we have to account for the sequencing of the roof trusses, interior partitions, furring strips, all of that. So what we did here on the outside, you'll notice there's a blue strip that runs around the top plate.
I saw that. From the outside, you can see it on the front of the house.
And that's a Sega MyVest product. And the reason we use Sega MyVest is not because of the MyVest, it comes in an 18-inch roll. So it's the right size and it's highly durable. So they put that on the top of the wall for about the top 3 or 4 inches. They tape it off. They fold it over and just lay it down.
Okay.
And then they put the trusses on top of that. So now my air barrier is underside of truss and it's just hanging down. They put all the trusses in and then we come in and they put the Sega Myrex, which is a smart vapor retarder, and they put that in and then they bring it to the edge and they tape it off. Now you'll notice there's a joint here and here. Now they ran the center section first because they had to leave this open to put the baffles in for the vented roof, and then we splashed those with a little bit of closed cell for wind washing purposes. And then when that was completed, we ran this piece down both ends. The Reson tape is proprietary to Sega also, which is a very aggressive tape. And then that seals that up, and then the 2x4 furring, as opposed to the 1x3 downstairs, that just gives us a raceway to run fan boxes, lights, and wiring, smoke detectors on the inside of our air barrier.
Do you have to do anything as far as fire? Having cavities open, running down?
No, because we're going to have all the drywall that's going to compartmentalize it. Right, once you put the drywall up, yes, you have those cavities, but that's no different than the floor joist cavity that's below our feet from a compartmentalization, right? But it's proved to be a really good system. The homeowner here is actually the builder, Brett, and we just did a house with them where we used this exact system on a much smaller house, which is blower door numbers on smaller houses are harder to get good successful numbers, and there we hit like 0.54 or something, 0.5 on that house using this system. So we can get below passive house levels. And again, it goes back to, yes, you have good material, you have very aggressive tape, but it's got to be installed.
Planning that we still have work to do, getting most of this installed, most of it taped, but still leaving yourself a way to get up and do things that you need to do.
Yeah, and I know some guys that sit there and say, well, you know, it's a pain in the neck. I got to come back. I got to frame these walls. I got to do this and that. But the reality is we're here in New England in February. Like, get the roof on as fast as possible, get it shingled. And what framer wouldn't want to come here in a sweatshirt and do all this interior work for 2 weeks?
You got inside work.
Right, and stay nice and dry doing all of that work.
You mentioned wind washing. Do you have an attic access that we
Yeah,
can
if we
look
take a
at?
walk down here, we can, you can actually see, because one of the issues that you run into when you do a system like this is you still get the plumber saying, well, that's all good, Steve, but I got a plumbing vent I got to run. Or we have to run some electrical lights into the attic. So here you can see there's our wind washing detail. we have our venting baffles, and those come down vertically. It gets all sealed in there, so the air that goes in our soffit can only go up to the ridge now. And we're going to put in about 22 inches of blown in insulation up there. So
Cellulose?
yeah, we're going to use cellulose on this one. This is actually a New Wool product that the whole house is going to be blown cellulose, except for the basement. We're going to use their cellulose-based bat.
Cool. So when you say wind washing, you're now not talking about like building envelope, keeping the inside from the outside. You're talking about the interaction of the attic insulation with wind coming from the outside.
Short-circuited because the wind has the ability. Cellulose is air permeable insulation. So you have to stop the air from permeating the insulation for the insulation to be effective. And so by putting that baffle there and sealing it up means that there's no air transfer when the wind blows to the lateral side of that blown-in insulation.
Yeah, I think that's always something that's so easy to forget. It's the air in an insulation that's the insulator. So you want that still.
But the air doesn't want to move, right?
Exactly.
And it doesn't want to be exchanged for cooler air.
Yep.
It wants to stay very static, but it wants to exist.
Yeah. So that's a nice solution.
And so we picked this here, and you can see this is all the details of how that, there's a double-sided tape
Okay, I was gonna ask.
that allows you to put up, and that's exactly what you're seeing there, that you just peel that facer away, and then the Myrex will stick to that, so you don't have 1,000 staple holes. And then once we put the 2x4 on and they shoot it, then that'll assist in holding that in place. One of the other cool details while we're up here, notice in the shower here, and this is the first time we've done this too, the floor is a manufactured wood truss. So the truss manufacturer built that 2-inch step into the trusses that go across there.
You didn't just cut off the top?
We
cord?
just didn't cut off the top cord and said, hey, we can, it'll still work.
So for zero entry, the truss company can.
The truss company can build that in. They have the dimensions on the framing plan.
This is kind of cool, Timmy. So obviously you're going to have your cavity insulation here. I don't know if you're going to put another one here, but basically you got a soap ledge, right?
Yes.
And then I can't tell if it's beveled or not for a little bit of a drainage.
It's got a little bit of a slope,
Little
but we
bit.
can build that up when we put the stone on there too.
Yeah. Now, I know it's not for the purposes of this video. Do you spec all of the interior colors by this
We
point?
have an interior designer that we worked with on here that was friends with the homeowner. So she picked out a bunch of the colors. And
Will there be a
stuff.
door on? No, you've
No.
got a window here.
we have a window there.
And
so
then
there's
water
no door.
closet?
The water's on this wall, shooting in that direction.
And water closet where you're standing, right?
And the water closet where I'm here.
Window there.
Window here, this is just a vacancy because of the way the trusses were laid out, and it gets us some ductwork up into this area and some Zender ducts out. One of the interesting things, and I've actually done this a number of times, but when you're thinking about designing spaces and people say, well, my window's going to get soaking wet or that wall is going to get splashed back. I've actually paid attention, like take a shower for 15, 20 minutes and then look at the 5-foot wall away.
Yeah.
And it's dry as a bone.
Absolutely.
So the water really doesn't, it's not like you're in there splashing around, sending the water, so having that door as an open door certainly isn't a problem.
And then you can tell these are going to be tile walls because they use engineered LVLs right where you're standing. You know that.
Anytime we're using a tile product, kitchens, bathrooms, this particular builder especially likes to move to the studs for just reasons of straightness, consistency, all of that.
2-foot centers, I noticed.
And it's all 2-foot center.
Centers. And now over here, you've got plumbing, obviously.
We have plumbing there, but we also have some tile there, and you can see we have a little shelf there where we have a wall-mounted faucet. There's going to be a tub in the floor
Oh,
there.
okay. A
So
soaker.
a freestanding tub in front of the window,
Nice.
and that'll have a wall spout.
Do you do engineered studs when there's cabinetry only and there is no tile
In the kitchen,
work?
the kitchen is, we have it in all of the kitchens too.
Because you're putting,
Just,
boxes
there's
against
nothing worse, especially when you come in and you look
your countertop.
on the side
Yes.
and you can see where it goes from nothing to an 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch because the cabinetry is level and the wall isn't, or plumb.
Good planning.
So
Cool. Anything else?
No, I think we've closed it out on the top.
There's that detail, by the way.
There's that detail. You can see there's that Sega comes in, and then you can see how the Reson captures that and provides that continuity. So this detail goes up, sails across, and just becomes the mirror image opposite hand on the other side.
Maybe just one last question that I would have. The smart vapor retarder is more vapor open when there's higher humidity or vapor closed?
More vapor open. So it has the ability to release it, but if it understands that there's more moisture on the other side, then it has the ability to dry back. You know, one of the interesting things, you know, we all go on these trips, right? We've been out to SIGA. You guys go out to all the tool manufacturers and stuff. I was at SIGA, and for whatever reason, me and one of the lab scientists at SIGA,
Not stuck in a boat?
we weren't stuck in a boat. We were in the lab.
Okay.
And we were just chatting. And one of the interesting things, I talked to him, and this thing goes back to the social media thing, when people just spout out like, hey, that's a dumb product. Hey, that's a stupid product, right? What they don't realize is that all of these companies, Huber with their X Factor, SIGA with their MyVest, they literally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to understand the performance of that product before they release it to us in the industry.
And there's multiple iterations of those products.
And that's exactly what I'm getting to. So we'll give you a little test. How many iterations of SIGA Myrex do you think they went through before they settled on this is the recipe?
I'm going to say 100. Just
That's my
Yeah,
number.
it was about 126 or 127, he said, before they said, that's it. So it's not like they do one or two and say, hey, we're close enough, we'll just send it out. The builders can fend for themselves, or the architects, and they're on their own. These companies literally spend a lot of money, at least the ones that I highly respect, and they do the job very, very well. And so the products that we get, if we install them properly and adhere to what they design them to do, they're going to perform just fine.
Well, Steve, this has been awesome. Thanks
Awesome
for
tour,
having us
buddy.
out.
I would like
Anytime.
to.
You know what? Why don't you take some of that home? You can roll it out, breathe through it, do whatever Tim does. You'll at least look important going from the house to the car.
You look like a general contractor
We should
now.
print. We should print blueprints on this material.
We could. We could. It's almost Mylar-like.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. If you're available, I'll let you take me out to a steak dinner tonight.
I think tonight we are going to have the steak dinner.
Boston? We going to Boston?
Boston.
Baston.
And I'm gonna throw it out there. Abe and Louie's.
We gotta
It's
pack the cow
my
in Baston.
favorite steak place in the country, easily, and it's not even a close.
Pack the car in Baston.
We're gonna park the car over there, and we're gonna go grab a steak.
How do you like those apples?
I know what that's from. How do you like them apples? You don't know what movie that is. Good Will Hunting. Well, I got her number. How do you like them apples? You got to watch more TV. Less reading, more TV.
Not really a Ben Affleck fan,
I said it wasn't.
but I'm a Robin Williams fan.
It was Matt Damon, actually.
Yeah. They're the same thing.
I saw a rare photo of him yesterday. It was like a 50-year-old picture of him as a mime. Like it was his first
Yeah.
introduction to
Didn't he
any
do that on
level
Mork
of
and Mindy?
stardom.
He had that bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this was even before it. It was like on the streets of New York, and the caption was like, "That's Robin Williams in his early days as a mime."
Do your best mime impression.
They do okay.
Yeah.
This is off the
That was an air sealed box. Excellent job.
I was in an air sealed box. I'm stuck.
They're still rolling.
I just grabbed this because I figured you guys would want B-roll. Yeah, I mean, all this stuff we should get B-roll
A
of.
B-roll.
Are you going to be doing pull-ups?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I did.
You just got to keep the camera up high.
Oh my God. What? Watch this, eh? I'll be like this.
How many do you have in you, Steve?
I can go all day, buddy. And you know, you might want to
Why do you guys have this strapping anyway?
go to a wider stance there for a little better workout.
This is unbelievable. How are you doing this?
It's not a problem, buddy.
All right, I quit.
Yeah, me too.
So, Steve, we're inside the house. What's going on here?
As far as
Well, what are some of the things we're looking at from the architecture, the building science side?